Hey, hi, hello, and welcome back to a Riff. We love it, we love it, we love it. It has been a time, and this is not gonna be about the braids, y'all, but I will say that the braids have made me want to come back and do these podcasts and also buying a mic and like all of this stuff. So if you're new here, this is the Drip Project. I'm Tarapriolo. I am your resident Black, biracial, multi-passionate musician. I talk about the ish that nobody wants to talk about and push you to do the same. So the braids made me want to come back, y'all, and also the events of last week. For those of you that don't know, or you're like, when is this posted? It's September 15th. Last week, there was a school shooting. Charlie Kirk was murdered, and there's a whole lot of people reacting, right? The world is reacting, and there's a bunch of other stuff going on, like horrible play in the NFL and these kind of things. But I realized as I was thinking about, like Saturday in my stories, I posted Fiona Flight's live video, and I was like, I'll do a reaction to this, or like I want to talk about some of the things that we've been talking about in my stories the last couple days in regards to Charlie Kirk and violence and like stuff like that. And then as I continue to consume information and as I continue to flow through life and think about it, I realized this morning that this needed to be a podcast. That this was going to be greater than stories, and that I could not like not bring it to the podcast, and y'all needed a better way to consume it. So welcome, and if you are here on YouTube or anywhere else, you can feel free to join my Substack and get all of the things, including blogs and my monthly newsletter, at lifteveryvoice.substack.com. That's what the Substack is named. All right, let's get down to it. So over the last couple years, ever since I rejoined Love and Action Network and recultivated my relationship with Dr. Flo, and met Poppy Wada, who is the owner of House of Mommy Water, I have been walking through the chakra system and the 7-day chakra pillar challenge from House of Mommy Wada, and been really feeling into my feelings and opening my worldview and exploring other things, and being in a relationship with white and black people and also everybody in between, and being in music, a very elitist side of music and high level music, and all of that. Like many of you that have followed me on other platforms other than Substack know a lot about my journey, and I allow you to watch me and experience as I grow. And so anyway, walking through this chakra system has been monumental in terms of how I have come to view the world, and I have come to understand what healing looks like and how my healing can help other people, and how I can be in community with so many different types of people. And that's the backdrop of it, right? And so my child is right here. So if you see the computer move or you hear things, it is because my child is right here. And I'm like, we're in real life. So I'm trying to see. Yeah, we're good. Okay. I couldn't tell if the microphone was still on, and I just wanted to make sure that it was still on. Okay. So I'll start with the Fiona Flight live video. And so this was her day 12, I believe. Yeah, day 12 of her 365 days Frequency of Truth lives. And she was telling this story about her kids going to unschooling, essentially, and was talking about sharing. And she used this example of how in unschooling, Billy and Jimmy, like Jimmy could take Billy's ball and Billy might hit Jimmy, but the conversation never involved shame or guilt. It would be the grown-up would come over, and instead of saying, Billy, you're so bad for hitting Jimmy, and never hearing Billy out, there might be some type of conversation like, Billy, why did you hit Jimmy? Jimmy, did you take Billy's ball? How does that make you feel, right? And really tapping into the emotions instead of forcing the emotions down into it and not allowing any of us to feel the anger or the sadness or taking away those quote unquote uncomfortable emotions, which is also something that we talk about in Love in Action Network a lot, right? And the other thing that Fiona said in that video, and it's right after the share about the sharing, right? It's right after the share about Jimmy and Billy, who are fake people, but whatever. She said something about disagreeing, but still being in community with each other. And I had just talked about this in my stories the other day of like, we can disagree. It like, actually, that's really healthy, except when it comes to humanity of people, right? We can disagree because we're moving in the same direction. And as long as we're moving in the same direction, we can be in community with each other, right? So I hope that all makes sense and how that like connects. And it really just like, it landed for me in a way of like how repressed we are in the expression of our uncomfortable emotions and how that is like ripped away from us truly in the way that we're schooled and the way that we're taught and the way that parents use their power over children and how children are an oppressed group. Now that I'm a parent, like I really see that. Like I disagreed with it before, but now I'm like, oh my gosh. So anyway, that just landed for me in a way that it hadn't landed before. And then I saw a video this morning and I was trying to remember who it was by, but I'm not going to remember right at this moment. It was Joy Reid. And Joy said, you know, like, y'all got to deal with your anger, right? Like the punching right, which is what happened to Charlie Kirk, right? Or the punching from the right, right? Because Charlie Kirk was right. Charlie Kirk was a right-wing extremist, right? But the people that killed him, or the person that killed him, is even further right, which is wild to think about, right? And so anyway, like Joy was like, you white people, you all got to deal with your anger. And the connection for me between those two videos, Fiona's and Joy's, is that people are not taught to deal with the uncomfortable emotion of anger, when in fact we all feel anger, and it is just how we are in community with each other and discussing our anger that makes a difference, right? I'm going to bring y'all two more videos. So there was I've got plans going on in my text messages. There was a video by Jean Lee, and y'all, I've talked about this a few times, and I talked about it in my stories last week even, was the Everybody Deserves to Eat, and how I was having a hard time squaring that this hateful person, this person that spewed rhetoric that got people killed, right, was eating, right? And like, to me, a person that incites violence like that and incites hatred and really, like, I mean, calls people a scumbag, like, in their death, like, that's really hard for me to square as a person that deserves to eat. But Jean Lee, right, had been in a homeless shelter with a Nazi, and they still talk to this day. And Jean Lee's Black and trans, and I really had taken it to heart. But anyway, so the original video by Jean Lee was just like, everybody deserves to eat, right? And like, can we come into agreement with that everybody deserves to eat, and like, all human life is precious, right? And then they made a follow-up video, and I don't know that I ever shared this one, and this has been years in the making, y'all, where they said, everyone deserves to eat, but maybe not at your table. But maybe not at your table. And I was just like, that's it, right? Like, we don't, as I'm exploring in my business, as I'm exploring in my life, as I'm exploring in all things, that we don't have to be for everyone, right? And everyone does not have to come into our personal community, right? That there are other communities out there that may be a better fit for them, yeah? And so if everybody deserves to eat, maybe just not at your table, then how do we converse, like Fiona was talking about in the original video, and how do we deal with our anger when people, certain groups of people in certain communities are promoting that you don't have to deal with your anger, are saying that, you know, like, to repress it, to keep it down, to not talk about it, to and how that manifests then in literal killings of people, yeah, of various types of people, of Black people, of Charlie Kirk type people, etc., of children in schools, and how this all connects, right? And so the last video I'm going to bring up is a video, and I actually unfollowed this person because I do like. I'm going to just tell you about the video. I cannot remember the creator. I don't even, her name is Maggie. And I think the handle is Maggie Eats. And Maggie is someone that does a bunch of eating videos. She's a recovered alcoholic, or a recovering alcoholic. And, you know, she's 3 years sober in a couple months. And what she talked about in her video, there was like a political thing that happened like about a month ago where she never, like, the person accused her of voting for Trump and she never said no, right? I kind of was like, okay, like, probably voted for Trump, but like, okay, I'm trying to see the other side, right? But this is not a person that I would have at my table, yeah? And so anyway, today she was talking about how the 12-step program encourages to find a higher power, and her higher power was God. And then she was like, and, you know, have you only listened to sound bites or like out of context things from Charlie Kirk's speeches? Because the fascism and the racism and all that stuff, like, it wasn't the main point. The main point was reaching across the aisle and talking to everybody. No. And then I saw a Fred Hampton video literally right after. I unfollowed Maggie. I went to Instagram. I saw a Fred Hampton video, and in the video, Fred Hampton says, nothing's more important than fascism, because fascism will get us all, right? Or nothing's more important than stopping fascism, because fascism will stop us all, I think is the quote. And that is just, it's like so true that the way that white people primarily, and some Black people, and, you know, white supremacy lives in every body, right? Every single type of body. The blatant refusal, like, oh, he was a good person, even though he was spewing racist, fascist rhetoric, but it wasn't the whole speech. That's not a difference of opinion. Right? And I still believe that Maggie deserves to hold a better life, but it will not be at my table. Right? In the same way that a Charlie Kirk could have lived a better life had he come out of white supremacy and people not been paying him for white supremacy. He would have lived a happier life. He probably would not have gotten murdered. Right? And the last thing that I will say is that nuance is so lost. Like, this is not a nuanced situation. It is so blatant, right, what happened, and we know a lot about what happened. And also, like, we have to deal with the emotions. That's the whole point of this video. We must deal with the emotions, and we must learn how to talk to each other about our emotions. And if that means leaving communities, that means leaving communities, right? And that means finding the place that's going to hold you. It doesn't have to be Love and Action Network. It doesn't have to be Tarapriolo Studio. It doesn't have to be any of these places. It could be a place that I don't even know about. It could be, you know, but we have to figure out how to talk to each other and how to hold each other. And that is what Fiona was talking about in her video, was like, we have got to explore what it means to disagree with someone and hold them if we can, if we are safe to do so. And that is what people are missing a lot of. Like, all of these people that are like, but he was reaching across the aisle, but he was reaching across the aisle, but he was reaching across the aisle, and he really knew how to talk to people. You're missing the part where there were people harmed. Right? And there's so much more that I have said on my Facebook and on my Instagram and all of that. But I wanted to talk about this series of videos because it just became bigger than the Fiona Flight video, right? Which was great. And I was like, whoa, yeah, we do really cut off people's emotions, and we do really, like, we do such a disservice of repressing these emotions. And what does white supremacy take from us? It tries to take our authentic emotions, and it doesn't teach us how to talk about them, and therefore we kill each other for it. We kill each other for it. And I think that is the conversation worth having. Because at the end of the day, in a world where emotions are free and where we can talk about them with each other, there would be no Nazism. There would be no white supremacists. There would be no the world. And I really believe that. And I believe that we can get there. But it is hard work. The healing process, the opening process, the vulnerability is hard work. It's hard work. And I hope that we can do it together. You don't have to be in my community. You don't have to be at my table. But I hope you're at someone's table. And someone's safe, and someone that doesn't ignore white supremacy. And someone that doesn't instigate it. Right? And I hope those people find a table too, to heal from. All of it. All right, that's been enough in this video. Continue to be anti-racist, be safe, wear a mask, make good trouble, do good work. I love y'all hardcore. You are loved and lovable, and nobody can change that, not even you. Joy. Yes, joy is our revolution. Step into it, belong to it, and walk in it today. And I will see you next time. Toodles.